Good evening, everybody. I would like to call to order the December 14th, 2021 Board of Education regular meeting at 7 p.m. Sarah, good evening to you. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Berardi?
Here.
Mrs. Beck? Here. Mrs. Lala? Here. Mr. Rosanna?
Here.
Mr. Monson? Mr. Palazzo?
Here.
Mr. Tribuzio?
Here.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Quorum has been established. I want to make note. Board member Chris Monson did contact me before tonight's meeting. He got tied up at his place of employment, and that's why he's not here. Please stand for the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Berardi, take the mission statement, please.
Sure. The mission of Norwich School District 80 is inspiring educational excellence in a nurturing environment.
Thank you, sir. We will celebrate some success, so if anybody has anything right now, now's the time to do it.
Yeah, I'll start. Just want to say thank you to some of the teachers and staff. Last month, received an email. Happy School Board Member Day. Didn't know it existed, but I thank you very much. I appreciate it. And Ralph for the card in the mail. Don't see that too often, but it was exciting to get a card. So I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I would like to celebrate the Giles Band. We had our holiday band concert yesterday. It was a huge success. I think it put everyone into the holiday spirit. The students did a wonderful job, along with our director, Mr. Vaccaro. So it was a fantastic evening.
Great job. Great.
I would like to celebrate the completion of the first step of the chillers. We had a chiller come into Giles, a chiller going to Lee, so the first of the two chillers of the 5 existing chillers were replaced. It was really fun to see that kind of finally happen and finally come together after talking about it for so many months and seeing that crane put it in place. It was neat.
Very good.
So I want to thank the buildings and grounds people for all their work on that.
Absolutely. Anyone else?
Sadly, we were really proud that our coin drive collected over $3,000 for the Salvation Army Giving Tree. So I just want to put that out there. That was the highest amount that's ever been collected.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, I thank you all for that. Moving on to our action item, I'll ask the board to consider the approval of the agenda as it's presented and or possibly modified. We have no changes. No changes. Administrative. Anything from the board? Any other discussion? Okay. Without discussion, without anything, I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda as now presented.
All motion.
I'll second.
Lorenzo, Maria, Sarah, roll call.
Mr. Berardi?
Yes.
Mrs. Lala? Yes. Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Tribuzio?
Yes.
Mr. Rosanna?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes. That motion carries. I'd like to recognize our visitors tonight, a little bit fuller than normal, which is good. We're anticipating you're here for the traffic study, which we're trying to get to you, and we're looking forward to that tonight. So welcome. Correspondence, there is no correspondence. Public participation. Is that what you said? Thank you. Go ahead, that's what I'm reading.
At each regular or special meeting which is open to the public, the Illinois School Code and Board Policy require that members of the public and the board's employees be afforded time to comment or ask questions. The board's agenda designates this portion of the meeting to recognize those visitors and provide an opportunity for comments or to ask questions. The board asks that speakers identify themselves and limit comments or questions to no more than 5 minutes. 5 minutes may be shortened if the president must conserve time to give the maximum number of individuals an opportunity to speak. Speakers are reminded to conduct themselves with respect and civility towards others. The board also requests that speakers refrain from identifying individual students or staff. Speakers who choose to identify specific students or staff do so at their own risk. Please keep in mind that the opportunity to engage in public comment at a school board meeting does not insulate speakers from libel or violations of privacy. Lastly, if someone wishes to present an unresolved complaint to the board requests that you contact Mr. Grimm. Thank you, and the board now looks forward to your comments and questions.
Thank you, Lorenzo. Our first speaker, Nancy Carbone.
I wanted to address the board, but after the presentation of the traffic, because I don't know what that's going to show. I just have concerns, mainly with traffic flow for residents in the area as well.
Yeah, no, that's understandable, Nancy. I think what we'll do is, when we have our presentation, I think the best way to do it is when we have the presentation, I think if there are some questions, we'll ask them then and try to get those answered for you. So we did this in conjunction with the Village of Norwich to answer your questions. So that's fair, and we'll get that done.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Second speaker, Anthony Vitale.
I have the same, I'm the
Same
same
thing?
Nancy, yes.
Yeah, understood, gotcha. Okay, FOIA requests, there are none to report since the last meeting. And we'll get to that presentation. So I'm going to turn over to Assistant Superintendent, Mrs. Michelle Guzman.
Thank you, President.
You're welcome.
So just a few moments of background before we start the traffic evaluation study. And when Lee School became the preschool through fourth grade grade center, we had 600 plus students and started to be concerned about the safety of the students and the traffic flow in the neighborhood, because we are now not looking at students who are able to walk to school easier or who are just right here in the Lee neighborhood. So now we're looking at students that are coming from perhaps over by Giles, and that naturally brought the traffic around a greater amount of cars, and it was a greater concern. Previous to COVID, we had a meeting with the village, and we met with some officials there, and we had a joint interest of looking at an outside company to take a look at our process, to look at our traffic flow, to look at the safety for our students, and to give us some advice on how we can improve that. To be quite frank with you, we hit March of the COVID year and everything shut down, and that wasn't really the time to be able to revisit that traffic study. And then last year, we weren't ever really at a capacity of 100% of our students. So the traffic last year wasn't as big of an issue, so now we're revisiting it back in December of 2021. We worked with the village, so I do want to thank our village president, Mr. Tannhauser, who was the president at our meetings, Brian Gazer, who was there, and also now recently, Brian Goss, who has joined us in our research. Really, our interests were, how can we move traffic? How can we make sure that we can have students can be safe? And how can we help our neighbors during this process of getting our children to school safely? So we reached out to Michael Workman, who is with us tonight, and he's going to present to us the study that he did on the traffic. And I can tell you, I was here at the time, it was really, really cool. He came in, and I'm sure he's going to go into detail about this, with just some different things that were up in the air, counting cars, and a lot of people around that were helping us to see how effective our flow is now, and make recommendations on how we can improve that. So Michael, you can please.
No problem. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Michael Workman, as you heard. I'm a principal at the firm of Kennick, Winter, O'Hara, Boarding Inc., or KLOA Inc. KLOA is a traffic and transportation and parking firm out of Rosemont, Illinois, just up the block from here. I am a professional engineer and have been practicing now for almost 35 years. We were retained to examine the traffic conditions at the school and within the neighborhood. So I'm going to go through about a 5, maybe 10-minute presentation, and then, as you've heard, we'll be here for questions. So let's begin. First of all, regarding the study area included 11 intersections within the immediate area along the Cortland Avenue and Thatcher Avenue corridors. The intersections included Lawrence Avenue, Giddings Street, Leland Avenue, Eastwood Avenue, and the north parking lot access drives. In addition, we also observed the operation at the 3 loading zones where the drop-off and pickup operation occurs. These 3 loading zones are in the north parking lot, in the intersection of Cortland Avenue with Leland Avenue, and Cortland Avenue with Giddings Street. This is hard to see, but this demonstrates what the study area was. It shows the various intersections up and down Cortland as well as Thatcher, and shows the existing roadway conditions that are on the area streets and when drop-off and pickup activity is occurring. Regarding the roadway conditions, except for Lawrence Avenue, all of the roads within the neighborhood are 2-lane local roads. Always stop sign control are provided at 3 of the intersections within the study area. Cortland with Giddings, Cortland with Leland, and Thatcher with Leland. All of the other intersections are under 1-way or 2-way stop sign control. During that critical morning drop-off and pickup period for the school, there's a number of modifications that's done to the roadway system to enhance operation. The first and probably the most important is Cortland Avenue is closed along the frontage of the school between Leland Avenue and Giddings Avenue. This is done from about 7:45 to 8:30 and 2:45 to 3:30 in the afternoon. So that section of Cortland is closed primarily to eliminate that traffic flow there and provide for safer pedestrian access that are crossing the street and the amount of pedestrians that are in that area. In addition, Giddings Street and Leland Avenue become 1-way westbound streets when that road is closed, from Cortland Avenue to Thatcher Avenue. This is in effect from 7:30 to 9 a.m. and 2:30 to 4 p.m. In addition, crossing guards or traffic control aids are provided at the intersection of Cortland Avenue with Giddings Street. And for the most part, it comes and goes. There's also one provided at Cortland Avenue with Leland Avenue. The one at Cortland and Leland is usually an officer. He's mostly there in the morning, if I understand it correctly, and is there sometimes in the afternoon, but there's always someone at Cortland and Giddings. Area parking. The school has 2 parking lots. The north lot has about 45 parking spaces. The south lot has 16 to 17 parking spaces, so about 61, 62 parking spaces. There's about 80 staff members between the school and the preschool, so the parking lot can accommodate most of the staff and teachers. On-street parking in the area. Parking is generally provided on both sides of the street. There are some parking restrictions, particularly along Giddings Street and Cortland Avenue. So data collection. As part of the evaluation, so let me get you a little more on those. We conducted some significant data collection to understand the operations of the school as well as the area roadway system. This included conducting extensive field observations and field surveys. We were out here a number of days, actually observing how the school operates, how traffic flows in the area. In addition, we conducted vehicle, pedestrian, and bicycle counts at those 11 intersections within the study area, as well as the 3 loading zones. These counts were conducted during the commuter and school peak hours, which occur at the same time. We conducted those from 7 to 9 a.m. We conducted counts during the school afternoon peak period, which was 2 to 4 p.m. And then we also did additional counts during the commuter peak period in the evening, which was 4 to 6 p.m. Lastly, we took aerial photos via drone. So we had a drone flying over during the morning and afternoon, the morning pickup period, the morning drop-off period and the afternoon pickup period, that were taking photos that demonstrated the congestion in the area, where people were parking, took photos every 10 minutes of those areas. Lastly, it was very important, the data collection was performed in January 2020, about 2 months before we shut down for the COVID pandemic. So we did see normal or typical operations. I don't know if we'll ever get back to normal or typical operations, but that's what we saw when we were out there. These two exhibits just show the results of the counts. The exhibit on the left shows the peak hour traffic volumes along the area roadways, shows the morning peak hour, the afternoon, and the evening peak periods traffic count. And the one on the right just shows the pedestrian volume. So we took a look at both the vehicle traffic as well as the pedestrian traffic. This just shows some of the drone images that we got showing each of the areas and how we saw it. And like I said, we got these for every 10 minutes, so we could see how the traffic built up and then how it subsided after the pickup and drop-off was over. So let's talk about some results and findings. Overall conditions, let's talk about traffic first. As you well know, the area roadways, except for Lawrence Avenue, generate periods of low volume of traffic. As we all know, this traffic increases pretty significantly during the morning drop-off and the afternoon pickup periods associated with school. The peaking or surging of this school traffic typically lasts for about 15 to 20 minutes in the morning and 15 to 20 minutes in the afternoon. Comes in 15 minutes, subsides pretty quickly, same thing in the afternoon. I've worked on many schools, and unfortunately, this peaking surging of traffic is inherent with most schools just because of that fixed start and end time. We see these at most schools, and what we try to do is why we have this peaking and surging is try to provide the most efficient, safe operations that we can. I like to call it controlled chaos, control it, manage it as well as we can. And that's what we were here to see, if there was anything more we could do. Interesting is, and we find this at a lot of schools, the morning drop-off activity at the loading zones was significantly higher than in the afternoon. What we found is more parents and caregivers are actually using the loading zone, dropping off their students and driving away, where in the afternoon, most parents, caregivers are actually parking and walking to get their student and walking back to the car. So they're parking and going to get their student. So the loading zone activity is much higher in the morning than it is in the afternoon, and that has some ramifications, which we'll talk about in a second. Regarding the pedestrian activity, primarily occurs along the east side of Cortland Avenue, the side that the school's on, and its intersections with Giddings and Leland, where people are crossing, coming to get their children. That's why it's so important that that section of Cortland is closed during the drop-off and pickup operation. Regarding the pedestrians, much higher in the afternoon than it is in the morning. Once again, that's due to the amount of parents that are actually parking in the afternoon and picking up their children, as opposed to what we find in the morning. Regarding the parking conditions, a small percentage of school staff needs to park on the street. As we indicated, there's about 62 spaces on site and 75 to 80 staff, teachers, so probably about 15 to 20 are parking on the street. That's if everyone drives along, but we'll just say that for now. Parents, caregiver parking demand higher and occurs for a longer period during that afternoon period as opposed to the morning drop-off. Once again, parents are parking in the afternoon and walking to pick up their children. So there's more parking on the area streets, and it typically lasts a little longer. Once again, the parking only lasts for about a 15 to 30 minute period when they are parking on the street.
As it pertains to the morning drop-off period, once again, we got a higher volume of drop-off activity at the loading zones. The nice thing is, this is distributed over 3 locations. Once again, the north parking lot and the 2 intersections along Portland. There are some parents, caregivers that park and walk their students to school, but it's much lower than we find in the afternoon. Overall, it generally operates well for a school, and given some of the challenges the school has, and that it only has frontage on one side, there's no busing at this school. When you take all those things in, it does operate pretty well. The fact that it really only lasts for about 15 to 20 minutes, like you find in most schools. The drop-off is distributed over several locations, so it's not concentrated at one location. And the queuing and the area congestion is limited to a 15 to 20 minute period. The primary congestion is along Portland Avenue and in that north parking lot where you're picking up and dropping off people. Interesting that since COVID hit, the entry and exit for students have been moved from the front of the school to both the north and south, which has actually helped improve operations. What we found is when we were out there, when people dropped off, particularly at the Cortland and Leland drop-off, they would wait to watch their student get to the front door, which is a farther walk than they have to walk now given the change, which reduced the efficiency of those people dropping off and moving along. So with the change in the entry and exit, it's actually helping improve conditions out there. Regarding the afternoon pickup, the overall afternoon pickup activity at the loading zone, as we indicated, is less than the morning. Very low volume of pickup at the various loading zones. Most parents are parking and picking up their students. Most of the parking occurs along Portland, Giddings, and Leland, the various Leland legs. Pedestrian volumes are much higher during the afternoon. We got more people that are walking and speaking to students. And once again, the afternoon, given all the challenges we have, generally operates well. Lasts for about 15 to 20 minutes. And one thing about the afternoon is that since most people are parking, it helps distribute that traffic over the neighborhood, which doesn't overload any one intersection, any one location. We're spreading that traffic out over the neighborhood, which helps reduce the traffic impact. So the last slide. Some of the recommendations, as part of our evaluation, we did examine a number of different alternatives to enhance the drop-off and pickup operations. What we found out is that everyone agrees from the school, village, and police officials agree that the existing operations provided the best alternative for a number of reasons. Once again, it currently operates and functions well now. There are some issues, and we understand that, but overall, it does operate well. Second, the relocation of the entry points and exit points for the students has helped improve the operation. And more importantly, it provided the best balance of traffic flow versus pedestrian safety. We did look at a number of alternatives where we opened up Cortland Avenue in front of the school, and it provided some traffic benefits, but everyone agreed that it probably sacrificed some of the student pedestrian safety. So we feel that this is the best operation. However, we do understand from the resident standpoint that some of the concerns are that many parents, caregivers, when they park, they block access driveways. We also understand that some parents will use the alley between Giddings and Lawrence to drop off people. They pull in off of Portland, drop off their students, then drive through the alley. So some of the recommendations we came up with is prohibiting any access to that alley from Portland during the morning and afternoon pickup period. This will be done with cones or sawhorse that will be put out there for half an hour in the morning and half an hour in the afternoon to ensure that traffic is not going down that alley. Also, the police have indicated that they will beef up their enforcement, that they will drive around and actually write tickets to any parents or caregivers that are blocking driveways, blocking intersections. One of the main things that we see, or we see a lot at a lot of schools, people double park in the crosswalks. And we don't want that. That's not safe for the students and everybody. So there'll be an increased police enforcement. And then lastly, the school will continue to educate parents, caregivers on the drop-off pickup operations, the procedures, and make sure that they're abiding by the procedures out there. That is my, I think it was 15-minute presentation, and we'll be here for any questions that you have.
So Nancy, I'll go back to you because you signed in, but we'll get to whoever has a question. But Nancy, do you have any questions?
Well, of course, the safety of the kids is number one. My issue is that my block, I live south of the school on the corner of Leland and Cortland. Everybody knows where I live now. I feel like Gladys Kravitz, for those of you that are old enough to know who Gladys Kravitz is now. But I get blocked in. I called the police today. First time I called the police, they came, they knocked on the woman's thing and said move. She couldn't get through because traffic is two ways there, so you're stuck, it's a gridlock. They did not give that person a ticket. I have twice asked nicely people to move. This is, I know the school can't do anything about this, but as a resident on my block, I'm speaking for us. I've asked nicely people to move, and they will, but in light of the way the world is these days, I don't want to be knocking on people's windows. And I don't feel that for me to get out of my driveway to go pick up my grandchildren at that time, once I had to drive on the grass over the curb to get out onto Leland. So I feel like the traffic pattern on the south leg of Leland is an issue. Even in the morning, if I come to try to make a right turn from Cortland onto Leland, I can't. There's just too much traffic, and I won't do it anymore. I'm afraid I'm gonna hurt a child. So I go all the way around, still can't get in my driveway, so I park on the street. Guess what? I'm parked on the wrong side of the street. I got a ticket that day. So I feel like something needs to be done on Leland on the south end. Whether it be like no parking on one side 3 days a week, no parking on the other side, or maybe making it one-way westbound during the school hours.
So this is good. I mean, this is definitely the place right now to voice those concerns, because there's a couple entities in the room right now. There's us as the school board, and how we can change or do things differently on here at the district. Police department is here tonight, the chief of police is here, the mayor is here, public works is here, building department's here. So I know they're hearing you right now, and we're working pretty good, really good together to try to get these problems addressed. You know, it's tough. I mean, if I were you, I have empathy for you. I get it. I understand that. There's a lot of moving parts at pick up and drop off. So how do we combat those parts the best way possible? That's why we're in the room tonight. So you're definitely being heard.
Mainly, I get the pick up and drop off, and like I said, I live near school, I expect it, I know there's gonna be traffic. But, you know, this thing of blocking driveways and, you know, you can't get out, and what if there's an emergency and you gotta leave? I don't wanna hop a curb, you know, I just don't wanna do it.
You shouldn't have to.
You know,
You shouldn't have to.
and I'm not the type, I mean, you guys all know my husband.
Yeah.
We're not the type of people that would call the cops, and like I said, it's the first time I've ever called the police. Because I need to get out of my driveway to pick up my grandkids.
We get it. It's understandable. Get it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for voicing that. Thank you.
appreciate it.
Anthony, back down?
Okay, right.
Sure.
So I'm speaking for my dad. He lives on an 8200 block of Levy. Okay, so the gentleman up here said that there's 15 to 20 teachers that have to park on the street. Giddings is residential only parking. So the teachers cannot park on Giddings for whatever reason. They're residential only parking. Why, I don't know, but they are. So they park 15 to 20 teachers or cars must have to park on streets around them because they can't park in the parking lot. So they park on the street. So he has a 2-car garage, he's 86, he does park his cars in the garage, but once he leaves during the day, he cannot park in front of his own house. So he's got to go back into the garage, try to back up. Now there's a lot of residents on the street that have more than 2 cars. They have to park on the street. I believe there's some garages, they only have 1-car garages I think on the other side of the street from us. There's no room for teachers, I'm sorry if you guys are teachers, there's no room for teachers to park on the street. Now, with respect to the Giddings people, maybe they can, I don't know, maybe they can alleviate some of the problem or build a parking lot in the school or something for them. I don't know what to do here. It's very hard for my dad to come home and argue every day. And I'm sure there's a policeman, Mr. Kravitz. I don't know, I think he goes up to Mr. Kravitz. I think that's his name, he's always. But I think that's mostly my issue is the parking issue. And then when there's street sweeping, you can only park on one side of the street. Now what do? So all the spots are taken. And I go to visit him at 2 o'clock. I park on the street. When I go to leave, I can't even go down the street. I have to reverse it because now it became a one-way street between 2 and 4. So if I go straight, Mr. Policeman stops me and says, hey. So I have to reverse my car because I'm visiting my dad if I find a spot. A lot of times I don't. I have to park on the next street over and walk to my dad's house. So it's frustration. It's frustration for him. It's a frustration for a lot of people on that street.
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
Just for some clarity, the street is the 8200 block of Enrichment?
It's right in front.
Yeah, okay, I just want to confirm that's where your dad lives. Is that a resident parking only street?
No, the other street, getting to this for some reason, I don't know why.
And then, I'm gonna ask you, Michelle, a question. I don't think it's a 2-hour window where it's one way. I could be wrong.
I
think
believe it's from, and the gentleman said 2:30 to 4, but I thought it was 2 to 4.
I believe it's 2:30.
Is it 2:30 now?
Okay, all right, so it's an hour and a half. Michelle, before the board changed over, correct me if I'm wrong, there were no parking passes that were being issued to staff. We implemented that, right? Or were there passes before that?
So before.
I'm trying to get to the point where how many passes have we issued to staff and how many are parking in our lot to try to get an idea how many are really on the street?
Okay, so are you referring to the passes for our lot?
Yes.
Okay, so every staff member last year, they were all given passes for our lot, so probably 80 passes were given out. But our lot does not fit everyone.
I know.
And I know Mr. Workman talked about the south parking lot. We're currently not parking cars in the south parking lot due to, as he mentioned, we have students coming in different doors now due to COVID. So the kindergarten and the first graders are actually passing through that south parking lot. So we're not currently using it. It may be something I think Dr. Rydell is going to talk about today, actually, possibly, of using it for the winter. The winter's a little more challenging for parking, just as you mentioned.
So you can use it in winter, you're saying, so it's okay in the winter time, but it's not okay to park there now.
I'm just telling you what our current practice is.
Okay.
That's
So
what we're.
now I see it's even bigger issue. Now you went from 15 to 20 to maybe 30 or 40 cars. These teachers have to park somewhere, I get it.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't fit in both lots anyway, so your point is correct.
I think actually go back and approach it every time when the total go back, you gotta go to the garage. I got 2 cars. We have to go back in the alley. I better watch the other car. Take a 5 minutes to go inside the outside. But then I gotta go home again and do everything every day. The teacher park at 8 o'clock in the morning to 4 o'clock to the car in front of the house.
Do you understand what you're saying?
100%.
Okay, so
Sure.
This is residential, not for the school.
Yeah.
The school is supposed to find a parking for the
what he's
teachers.
saying is, it's for him to park in front of the
I
house,
got
not for the
that.
teachers to park in front of the house.
That's it.
The school board, somebody has to find a place for these teachers to park their cars. We don't mind the traffic, obviously, for 15, 20, 30 minutes. Okay, we get it. People, you know, I went to school here too, I get it. But you have cars parked in front of the house all day long, and especially on street cleaning days, forget it.
This is street over there, guys, down way, nobody parks.
And there's no driveways here.
Everybody parks over there in front of the school.
So there's no
Now
driveways.
the street guys don't wait, don't go so much a car.
Where do you?
That's a car, the exit street.
Yeah, if I can ask you this right now, I can understand your father 100%. And I can hear you. Yeah. And I mean this in the most sincere, I'm not trying to be funny in any way. Like, do you have any suggestions where they could park? Because currently how things are set up, we're trying to maximize as much as we can, opening that lot, and where do they park?
Maybe they can park in the produce row parking lot, one block. They can do that. Maybe it's not taken all day. Maybe you guys could rent 20 or 30 spots.
We would have to talk
Why
to
does my dad
manage the
have
lot.
to, why do I have to run a visit my dad? I have to walk a block away.
I understand.
You're not to go park all the
He
time.
gets mad at me. He looks out the window, where's my son? I'm walking from the back, because I'm going through the alley to come to his house, you know?
Yeah, I got 2 hours over there, but 7 stories, other people come from the store, they can park.
So he rents the house next door too, is what he's saying. So, you know, you got residents, can't even park in front of their own house.
Sir, in the back.
So my question is like everybody mentioned about the parking. Like we all know 2 + 2 is 4. But right now what we're trying, what gentlemen explained on the skids and everything, that 2 + 2 is 4. But what we are trying to do is making 2 + 2 5, which is impossible. So one has to go somewhere. I totally understand, you know, we all, as parents, you know, we are very patient, we come, we stand in line, we take our time to come and pick up our kids and everything. But at the same time, when the cops start harassing you, like, you can't stand here, you can't this and that. If you look at the map of the street, for 4 blocks, there's no parking available. Like the gentleman just suggested, we can go parking British Road, that's illegal parking, and it's like, you know, you are actually parking in an illegal spot, because that's only for the British Road people who are shopping in a complex. That's not for us to park over there. So basically what I can suggest is, like, you know, I spoke to the teachers before, maybe they should have school bus service. I understand, they all say like, oh, it has never been done there, but there's always solution to every problem. And which I think, if you do a school bus service, that's going to take a lot of issues which is going to be resolved. That's one thing. And when they say like the cops are going to give you tickets, you tell us the idea, where do we go and park our cars to come and pick up our kids, when it's sub-zero temperatures, you know. In summertime, we understand walking 6 or 7 blocks is fine, but in sub-zero temperature, you know, it's like, it's insanity.
Can I ask you something, sir?
Sure.
I want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. If I think I heard you right, what I heard was 2 parts there. The first part was what the Vitalities were saying as far as where the teachers are parking. And maybe we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 cars parking on the street. I don't know that number. The second piece you brought up is a school bus service. So is the congestion being caused during the pickup and drop-off times, or is it being caused throughout the 8 hours a day because there's nowhere to park, or is it both?
No.
No, congestion is caused only at the time of pickup and drop off, you know.
Congestion is only pick up and drop off, mostly a pickup, because there's more parents get out of the car.
And just to add a line,
I think he has a different issue than I have.
It sounds like I want
okay, just to add, I'm very respectful to the residents of the neighborhood. Nobody, whoever, as a parents who come with our kids, would like to park in somebody else's driveway. We would not like to do that because we wouldn't like anybody else's parking in our driveway. But we are crying over the same problem, but do we have a solution? That's what we should look into. We all understand what the problem is, but do we know the solution? We should look into like finding a solution for that problem, not just like, you know, running around the bush and beating around the bush and be like, hey, this is the problem, this is the problem. We all know what the problem is. Right now, the biggest problem is like we have too many cars and very less space. So the only issue which I personally, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, I can suggest is maybe starting a school bus service. With one bus, you might have like 20 to 30 kids. That means 30 cars less. Because all the parents would love to have that. And if you have 5 buses, that's like 150, 200 kids. But the parents are not coming to pick up the kids, you know, that's going to be a big, you know, big solution to that actually.
So our issue is not so much traffic. We know there's going to be traffic at certain parts. It's just the parking in front of the house, okay, during the day. If the teachers don't park there, then I get it, they go park in front of the whole house. I think part of the solution is if the village or Norwich or whoever it is, has enough money, is to make parking spots where the field is. Where the parking lot is over there, make more parking spots. I don't think, they're using that field for softball anymore, it's only kindergarten and fourth grade, right? And maybe park on the south side, because I didn't know it was south side parking, but apparently they're not parking there anymore, so.
It's been,
Yeah, it's like, okay, well, I didn't know there was parking like that, now I know, but there's still not parking, so.
Yeah.
I live on the corner of Giddings and Portland here, and my driveway faces Portland. And before I get started, I have to say you have the nicest crossing guard in the whole district. It's abuse like you wouldn't believe every day. These parents, and I'm not saying all of them, but they're very aggressive. They leave their parked cars in my driveway, leave the car. I can't get in and out of my garage. I have 2 kids. I have to get to school and home. And they tell me, you know, where am I gonna go? And I'm like, I don't care where you go, but get out of my driveway. I can't get in and out of my garage. And the police have been great about trying to help and trying to move things along, but like the gentleman says behind me, we're trying to put 2 pounds in a 1 pound bag, and I don't know where these people can go with the existing structure, so I don't know if busing or expanding that field or something so people can move through and keep the flow going so they don't have to park all over the place, because I don't know if there's anywhere for them to go, but I can feel their frustration. And I get it, but yet I can't get in and out of my house either. And I hear him getting irritable all the time. I feel really bad for him. But it seems like it's kind of a powder keg, and we kind of need something to relieve that pressure.
And the first thing they can do is probably get there earlier so they can find a parking spot, instead of getting the last minute parking in their driveway.
Sir?
Yeah, Don Solomowski, 8210 West Wilson. Just a question, how come Wilson was excluded from the study? In essence, what you've done is you started pushing all the traffic more south, and we are getting this. We're getting people blocking the driveways, etc. The people, the ladies' comment here, are, how can I say this? Just more rude, okay, ignorant. With the way they drive down the street this past Friday, some guy who owns a big, long stretch limo was parked on Portland there and Wilson, blocking the crosswalk. You couldn't see traffic to the right, and correct me, Chief, if I'm wrong, that they should be parking 15 feet from the stop sign anyways. And I see this constantly. My concern is, because Wilson wasn't included in the study, that we are going to have somebody get hit. And these drivers, the parents, to this gentleman's point though too, I could sense his frustration, are becoming more aggressive when they pick their kids up. In the morning it's not bad, but in the afternoon at pickup time, can almost be Indy 500 too, with the way the people drive. So, but my question is, why was Wilson excluded from the study? And one other follow-up question to that, would it have been value to have input from the community during the study before this for your recommendations to see what problems we see? But it seems like that was discounted. So I don't know how much of an effective study this is going to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
We went several streets south of the school. At some point, we needed to stop. We counted 11 intersections.
Wilson was the last one.
I understand, sir. We made a choice to stop at Eastwood, excuse me. We didn't go to Wilson. The volumes on the streets pretty much are the same from street to street. They're a little higher as you get closer to the school, so we understand what's going on in Wilson. More importantly, the drones the photos we got of the drones did include Wilson, so we can take a look at it and see if there are any issues, and we can take a look at it.
Well, there's issues there.
Yeah, we understand You know, like I said, one of the biggest issues we see in a lot of schools, I'm working on one in the city of Chicago, where a lot of people park right at the intersection. And those can be very challenging in that they block crosswalks and so forth. So the school is trying to further educate the parents and caregivers. We're trying to get more police out there to enforce it more. It's more education. It's more teaching these parents and caregivers the proper way to pick up and drop off and where to park and so forth.
Is there any consideration, excuse me, one last question about making more streets one-way during this drop-off and pickup time? Is that being considered? Maybe that should be directed to Mr. Gazer and Mr. Tannhauser.
So,
Yeah, that was talked about. For the study that was talked about, with the labor company.
We looked at various options. The problem is when you start going to one way, some people want it, some don't. It makes you travel further along. Working with the police, working with the school staff, working with everybody in the village, we all thought this was the most appropriate way. Not to say that this is the end all. These are things we can look at. We understand the parking. There is some challenges here. We've said that all along. No busing, one frontage, one road that has frontage to the school. We can continue to look at this. The rules change, but those are things we can look at.
So you keep mentioning that police being strict, sir, but the problem is like the lady said, it's a 2-pound sand, you want to put in 1 pound bag, and you are telling us that, hey, put that sand in the bag, if not, I'm going to give you a ticket. That's not going to be a solution. You keep saying the same thing again and again. Giving tickets to parents, that's very wrong actually. That's like, you're not solving the problem. On top of it, you're putting like, more aggression towards the parents, because you're going to start giving tickets to the parents card or the caregiver card. That's not a solution.
I'm sorry, but
I totally respect that. You should. I mean, like, you tell me in case you are doing some kind of task which is impossible to do, and then on the top, the police says, I'm going to start giving you tickets and everything, start harassing you. Where should we go? How can we handle this?
but if somebody's blocking your driveway.
I totally understand. I respect that fact, actually. That's why the mission is to service the bus service.
So I think what we're gonna, I know what we're gonna do. Our next steps are gonna be this, and we welcome this. This is good. The dialogue is really good. There are issues. We're not denying that. Whether it's the teachers parking extra cars on the street, the congestion during drop-off and pickup, the frustration of the driveway being blocked. I used to live by Giles, right on the land. I understand what that looks like, and I know what that feels like for that spurt of time. What I think we're going to do is we have village officials in the room, right? How the police department handles it will come from the direction of their chief, and who's here right now. So he hears you. I'm not going to speak for him, but we're going to follow up with the police department, with the village, and these concerns that we hear, we got to address them, and it's just a matter of how we're going to address them, And if we could address them tomorrow morning, I think we would, but it's not going to be that fast. It's going to be a follow-up. So that's where we're at, I think. So we hear you.
So just to let you know, like all the signs on the streets, I'm a resident of Norwich, right? I live in Norwich, I have a parking thing and everything. But all the streets here close to the school, it says no parking during certain time. So basically, even when we are parking, not blocking anybody's drive on the streets, we are illegally parking basically. That's an honest answer actually. We are illegally parking on the streets. If you see, I actually spoke to the gentleman who's here. I spoke to him in the morning and I explained to him. I said, you know what? We are doing the illegal parking to begin with actually. It's not that we're doing something right and we are doing something wrong. It's like we are doing wrong to begin with. We as parents, believe it or not, we are wrong to begin with. But there is no solution to it. There is no way of making it correct until school comes with some idea that we can be corrected. Otherwise, we are wrong. I don't deny the lady, like saying somebody's blocking a driveway. I apologize that all the parents we have that we block the driveway. We are wrong to begin with. But is there a solution to it? I'm not denying the fact.
Well, blocking the driveway is wrong to begin with. The solution
So there's
is
no
probably
problem for blocks in the street.
Sir,
We are wrong to begin with.
the solution is not to block somebody's driveway, it's to park farther away from the school and walk. or get there earlier. I don't know what to tell you, the folks that, but you can't block people's driveway. We don't even have driveways.
Or second option I can give, maybe they can have like, okay, fine, this class gets break on this time, this class breaks at this time. Instead of everybody getting off at the same time in the school, maybe they can come to the idea, like, there's certain grades, they get off school at 2:30, 2:45, or 3 o'clock, and that's also good, like, maybe lower traffic.
All right, so I think at this point, and again, we appreciate hearing everything. We are gonna follow up, like I said. There will be, and I'm under the impression, Michelle, right, correct me if I'm wrong, the village sent out a robocall specifically to certain residents based on this tonight? Was that
Correct.
done?
So Mr. Grimm recorded a robocall that went out from Cumberland, Canfield, Lawrence, and Montrose.
Okay,
To
so
all those residents.
we will meet with village officials and the police department again. Like I said, they're here, they can hear you too. And we're gonna get back to this on the agenda in the next upcoming months. This was put, for lack of a better term, probably on the back burner a little bit because COVID came into play and there was a lot of other things and stuff that came up during that period of time. But we didn't forget about it. That's why we brought it here tonight. That's why we invited you. You're welcome to come to every meeting. We will definitely let you know when it gets brought back on the agenda. What we can do? What's the solution? Right? Yeah, we can open up that fence and make the parking lot bigger for more cars for the teacher. That's an option, but that takes time. That takes questions and how much does that cost? I don't, we have to see. So please give us a little bit of time. We hear you. We're going to try to address the things we heard as best we can and as soon as we can. That's what I feel is right. Okay, thank you again. Administrative reports. Mr. Brick.
In this one, I think I'll hold my comments for the agenda item.
Assistant Soup, Mrs. Guzzo.
Thank you. This evening, we are asking the board to extend the contract for the NYA Cheerleaders. As you recall, they have been renting the building through the month of December. They have come back to us and asked us for 5 additional days. This has been a wonderful cooperative endeavor with them. We haven't had any issues, any problems. So it is our recommendation to extend the NYA cheerleader rental contract for 5 additional days as outlined in the information in your packet tonight. I wanted to make one comment about Senator Markwick's visit last month, Giles School. If you may recall, in Mr. Bietti's report, he mentioned that Senator Markwick, I think it was actually coming the day after the board meeting last month. We had a really nice visit with him. He was able to meet with several students. He attended a class and explained to the students how a bill becomes a law. There was also a nice little group of students that asked him individual questions. I want to thank Mr. Bieti for putting together the day. It was a really nice day. At the end of the day, Mr. Bieti and I sat down with Senator Markwick and just talked about actually some of the newest bills that have been passed recently. One of them that he cheered, so we spoke about that. And we also spoke, if you recall, and some of you maybe weren't on the board at this time, but he had come to a board meeting, gosh, it was probably 1.5 years ago, speaking, the board meeting was at Giles, speaking about some infrastructure projects that he was advocating for Norwich District 80. So we followed up with him on that, and we are still on a list for about $175,000 infrastructure funds from the state. That list could take years to come to fruition, but we did want to check with him. I did want to report to you that we are still in the running for that, and that's something we hope will come to us someday. We wanted to follow up with him on that. The next part of my report, inside your board book, you have information about the Village's Santa Send-Off, which is this Saturday, that I know several board members are going to be attending. So there's information, attachments about where to meet, how that will run, and of course the map, and where Norwich District 80's position is in the parade. Very exciting time, and we're thankful to the village for inviting us to do that. And lastly, I attended a meeting with Leiden area superintendents regarding the next phase of the Leiden Norwood Athletic Association. As you recall, last month, we discussed the travel of teams for away games, and that we were not having additional families there from the neighboring schools. We have decided, just one little update on that, some of our parents were uncomfortable about that because of a safety factor. That if one of the students who was playing in a game perhaps got injured during the game, who was going to help to take care of that student when the coach was the person who was coaching? So we made a decision to send along, and Mr. Biecki worked with his staff on this, to send a safety teacher along that goes away to all away games and is there to help the students if any support that they need, and if anything would come up that they would need some safety situations, first aid, that person would be there. At the meeting that I attended, the discussion turned to the tournament. And it was many of the members, the superintendents, who felt that we should not have any visitors, any parents at a tournament game, which would mean it wouldn't be the people who are at either of the teams. I just wanted to let you know that I advocated very strongly for our parents to attend any games that we would be into in the playoffs. I shared with them the situation that we're doing, where we are sending a person along that can be there. Their concern, their why, and why they wanted to do this was several things. Number one, they felt that it's difficult for a visiting parent to come in and they're not following directions from the school that is the host school. So this would mean one of our parents who is there, maybe they're not following a COVID mitigation, or they are arguing on a call in a game, and then the home school is having difficulty with that parent. This is something in my mind that could have happened before COVID as well. This is not really only just a COVID issue. So I really did advocate for us to have parents at both sides of the teams to be there, and they did agree that all schools will send an administrator, this is what we got to each of the tournament games. So for example, if we make the tournament, Mr. Biecki or administrator in the district, whoever that would be, will attend. And then if there is an issue on someone not following COVID mitigations or someone being disrespectful, they would be there to help support also. It was a great collaborative conversation. It was definitely something where there were very strong opinions at the table, but I do want to share with you that we are able to send families to tournament games. And I'm really excited about that. I'm really happy that we got to that point in our discussion. Very happy with the group. Sorry, I closed my computer. That's my last item. Any questions?
Yes, really quick. On the Santa send-off.
Yes.
And I noticed on the village's website, and the message they're sending out, we have a car. So do we know who that is?
Who's driving?
Yeah.
That is something we'll have to decide tonight.
Because I know, right, Louise, is it safe to say Chris can have a car for that?
Sure.
Okay.
Several members said that they would attend, so we'll just have to work out the details.
Okay.
I have a question about Senator Margaret and the $175,000 and us being on the list. What is it that we need to do in order to maintain that we remain on this list?
Great question. Great question. We asked him that as well. There's really nothing in our control. This is the state allocating money, and then that money being allocated to us.
So it's arbitrary. There's nothing like, oh, well, we're going to earmark it to go. If we get this, we would go do something on the Senate or something like that.
As far as what we would decide to do with that
Yeah, do
money?
we have to tell them, or are we just going to get this gift?
It's for infrastructure. So we wouldn't be able to buy materials. We wouldn't be able to buy furniture. We would have to look at infrastructure.
Okay.
And anything that we would like in infrastructure, they would approve.
Okay, all right,
That's a great question, though, thank you.
thank you.
Board, any other questions? Okay, Michelle.
Thank you.
Building monthly reports. Start with Giles, Mr. Bianchi.
Thank you. Progress reports were released on Friday, December 3rd, so all the families should have received it. We've been communicating if a family member has not received it, to let us know, because that means they're not in the system, and all we need to do is just get them into the system for Mastery Connect. Attendance target reminder. I also shared this at our last PTA meeting. School starts at Giles at 8 a.m. Our gates open at 7:50 a.m. And then this is straight from our student parent handbook. Students who miss 5% or more of the prior 180 regular school days without valid cause, a recognized excuse, are considered chronic truants. Students who are chronic truants will be offered support services and resources aimed at correcting the truancy issue. I would like to report in 5th grade we sent 10 letters out to families. In 6th grade we sent 9 letters out. In 7th grade we released 9 letters. And in 8th grade we released 6 letters. So we are working on making sure that all students are attending school on a regular basis. We also partnered with the Norwich Police Department, and we had a digital citizenship presentation. It was on Friday, December 10th. I would like to thank our assistant principal, Mrs. Aarons, for setting up everything and working with the Norwich Police Department. It was a great event, and it educated the students on, when posting on social media, that anything you post and you think you delete, it's really not deleted, and it's out in cyberspace, and it can be accessible to anyone that can get their hands on it. So they need to be careful. We also talked about various things about being kind and not saying hurtful things on social media. We're all connected in some way, some form on social media. So it's important to not have issues. If you do have an issue, not to take your form on social media, but to have conflict resolution in person and asking for an adult to support that. So I'd like to thank the Village of Norwich and the Norwich Police Department for their assistance on that. We also provided an additional SEL support by our Dr. Tian, who is our school psychologist, and Ms. Salo, who's our school social worker. So each grade level had an opportunity to meet in the cafeteria, and the reason we chose the cafeteria is that we can get the entire grade level in there, and we can space everyone out and stay within our COVID guidelines. And the first presentation that we had was bullying versus social conflict. And it was very interesting. After the presentations, we would hear kids saying, well, that's not bullying, that's social conflict. So it was a pleasure to listen to the kids that were listening to the presentation and acknowledge and be able to identify. This additional SEL support is going to happen after we come back from the holidays. So in January and February, we're going to continue this, and then we're going to reevaluate it to see where we need to go next to support our students. I've already mentioned the band concert again. It was very festive and enjoyable event. The kids really did a fantastic job. We did have a bake sale there, and I'm pleased to announce that we raised $535 at the bake sale, and that's to support our band program. That money will go to the North Schools Foundation, which oversees that for the band program. We currently are hosting a Giles Boutique that's sponsored by our PTA. So that was being held today and tomorrow. What we're doing is during PE, kids are coming out of PE because it's in Anderson Hall. They're able to shop and purchase items for their family members or friends. It was very successful today, so we'll continue that tomorrow. So as a reminder, if you did not send money with your kids, please do so tomorrow, as they'll have that opportunity. And then finally, on behalf of the faculty and staff at Giles School, we would just like to thank the Board of Education for all your support. We'd like to wish everyone a happy holidays, and we look forward to a fresh 2022. So thank you for everything.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks for saying that, and same to you. Thank you. Board, any questions? Bob? That's all?
I just have we didn't really touch on it, but I don't know if this is the time. In regards to the COVID dashboard that we've been, the updates on the website, I have a couple questions. In regard, I'm looking at the week of 11/29 to 12/11, the last update. When close contact, is that number based off of in school? Because we had 2 students at the time. Is that close contact with student, or is this a general if they're at home in close contact?
So it's a general thing. If they attend the school and they're identified according to the guidelines set forth by the CDC and the IUPH that they are close contact and they need to quarantine, then they're identified as close contact. That dashboard, it changes every 2 weeks.
Okay, and then in regards to, does it get updated with the, we're sick, tested, pending testing?
Yes.
Learning results?
Yes, so it gets updated, it's updated daily. We have a document that our nurses and the administrative team update daily. And then we evaluate that data and then we put it on the document which our community sees on the weekly tracks. So there's the 4 categories that we monitor. We monitor COVID positive, we monitor close contact, we monitor people that are identified as being sick but yet not identified as having COVID. And then we are, the 4th one, off the top of my head. Sorry? Sick, thank you so much. Sick but tested negative.
Okay. And then that, so looking at sick, tested, negative, do we know the breakdown of how many kids were sent home from school, who came to school and were sent home, versus just not showing up, calling in and saying they were sick?
So our nurses have that data. They track everything. We don't put that out on that weekly tracks, and unfortunately, I don't have that information with me to properly answer that question.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Okay, Bob, thank you.
Board member, I believe we're going to see another change in guidance regarding quarantining and a couple of things in the next week or 2. I participated in a webinar with the director of the Illinois Department of Public Health, state superintendent, and the governor's deputy for education earlier this week. They hinted that there were some potential changes in some of these definitions that would be more favorable towards keeping more kids in school. So we're going to anxiously await that and hope that it doesn't come out at 4 o'clock this Friday afternoon. I'll keep you posted.
Okay, we'll release school now, Dr. Perdue.
Thank you. So, similar to what Mr. Vieques said, we released our progress reports also on December 3rd. We did just want to put out there that we had some parents emailing and asking some questions about Master Connected. We do feel that it is one topic that we want to share more information about with how the system works and what exactly you're seeing when you're looking through Master Inclement. So I want to just say that's something that we're going to be working on providing. But that these are standards that are worked on throughout the entire school year. We've had some really great events that the kids have been excited about with the book fair and the Santa's workshop, and that required a whole lot of volunteers coming in and volunteering their time to make those events happen. So I just wanted to use this time to say thank you to all of those volunteers for bringing that to Levy, because it was quite a task to put those 2 things together. As Mrs. Guzek had mentioned earlier, with the colder weather coming, and I'm sure we're going to be getting some snow at some point soon. We are considering what our inclement weather entry will look like, and we did have a couple of days where we tried to keep things as consistent as we could with when it was raining. But we would like to make some adjustments for the extreme cold weather and also for when there's a lot of snow and ice on the ground. So one of the things that we are thinking about is when those days do, present themselves, that we would use the main entrance as the, key entry point, while also having all kindergarten and first graders enter through the south gate where they enter now, but kind of turn the corner around the building and enter in the door that is right there, as opposed to having them walk to the back where the playground is. Just, especially with being able to clear that whole space and make sure that it's a safe entry. You want to, just get kids into the building as quickly as possible on those days. So we are planning to put that into the weekly tracks and make sure that that is communicated out on Friday. And we will make sure to keep putting that information out. We also have some updated signage that we actually is ready for pickup tomorrow, so I'm excited about that. So we'll have that out, and we'll actually be able to put that sign out and flip it around when we are having our inclement weather entry, so that way everyone will be aware of where to go. So hoping to get some pictures to be able to put into the tracks to show what that would look like, and really make sure that everyone is aware of that entry plan. We are hoping that that doesn't impact any of the traffic flow concerns, and at the same time, want to make sure that we're allowing students a safe entry to the building and having them walk through that whole south lot when it's not ready for them. It could be in unsafe conditions. We just want to make sure we get them in the building as quickly as possible. Also, we are going to keep trying to have our outdoor recess as much as we can. I know that's something that we've also got some questions about. So as long as the temperature is above 16 degrees, we are planning to be outside. So that is something we're excited about, because we know the kids love their recess time. That's not something that we want to limit. We know how important that time can be. On Friday, we had our a Top Tiger pizza party. We put that together just as a way to honor the students whose names were submitted as being a top Tiger, by showing how they can be safe, responsible, and respectful. And those were our top Tigers for the first 3 months of school during our first trimester. We got a lot of great feedback. Kids were really excited, and we were excited to be able to spend that time with them. In addition, we have begun our middle of the year Fast Bridge assessments. So that's early reading and early math, primarily focused in kindergarten and first grade. And starting January 10th, we'll be working on our NWA math assessments. And similar to what Mr. Bianchi said, just want to say thank you to all of you, and wish you a happy holidays, a happy new year, and we'll see you in 2022.
Thank you for saying that. Same to you. Or any questions? Okay, Dr. Rabiola, thank you. A special education report, Mr. Dorn.
So much going on. I'll keep it short and sweet to the highlights. First, progress reports were due, and we just completed those for the first trimester of studying. Those have all been sent out to all parents at this time, and those are towards their specific measurable IEP goals that are in addition to the general education curriculum that our students are being given access to and making progress towards. As time again, we're talking a lot about our transition to Ridgewood High School. That we have meetings in January and February where our students, we start to plan for their transition to Ridgewood High School to make sure that they are set for success. And we've really kind of set forth the norms of what a high quality program is. I'm really excited. Those meetings will take place at Ridgewood High School with a team from Giles School over there and a team from Ridgewood High School. And what I'm really excited is that Ridgewood High School is actually going to facilitate the meeting so that they have that first experience, because a high school IEP is a different process than a junior high, middle school IEP process. I'm really excited. I'm going to shout out to Mr. Babiecki. He is going to be training our entire staff on verbal intervention through the Crisis Prevention Institute. And one of those where January 3rd, you're a Teacher Institute Day, and that is just best practices. And if you have a student or an adult or anybody who's escalated, how do you respond in a way that respects that person's dignity and kind of calm down the situation so that, you know, how we're reacting, it goes into how we stand, how we talk, what we say, so many things. We're onboarding staff. You know, I'm sure that we're all reading the highlights. There's a lot of students who have a lot of needs right now, and one of the things that Mr. Graham, Ms. Gunsick, and the board has done is that they have supported the staffing needs to make sure that our staff, that we have the staff to meet the dynamic needs of the students in which we're serving. And that goes into another thing, is once we hire somebody, it goes into a lot of onboarding, making sure that we're setting people up for success. And we have a big co-teaching initiative, and that continues to be fruitful and leads to a lot of conversation. We're setting for another coaching session between West 40, between our consultant and our co-teaching triads in January and February. We're working on setting those dates, and it's also led to a fruitful partnership with West 40 and a lot of other areas. Sometimes in the world of special education, we need specialized areas of expertise that we're not always going to be able to have on staff, and it's nice to be able to know who to go to for high quality services. And it's been very fruitful, and I do want to highlight two committees. A special education committee, and they're just providing guidance to our district on how to build the best program we can, and are also a co-teaching committee that's also helping guide and lead our work. There are many that are on there. And then I'm also excited to bring back, hopefully in February, 2 staff members from Giles, because one of the things that we're looking at Giles that our special education team decided is we want to start having students in their process, in the IEP process, and what would that look like? How do we do that so that we can build that advocacy skills for our students so that they know what their needs are and so that they can best have them met, both now and in the long term. So there's a lot of great things going on, but those are the highlights.
Board? Mr. Dorff, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mrs. Guzik?
Thank you. Attached to board book, you have the staffing that currently exists right now in December. And this evening, we are asking for 3 positions, which are from resignations, and the new position of district registrar that we created, the board approved a few months ago. We're talking about that. Close up.
Discipline reports, Ms. Ahrens?
I am very pleased to report we have no suspensions to report this month. And at the end of trimester 1, Mr. Bianchi and I identified the students with the top 10 most referrals to our office and sat down with each of them and developed a behavior plan to help mitigate some of the undesirable behaviors we had been seeing. We also are trying to recognize the students who are Giles Band, who are coming to school every day and going above and beyond the expectations. So as a staff, we are urging ourselves to make sure we're recognizing students who are constantly following the directions and being a model student. As well as Mr. Bianchi mentioned earlier, the anti-bullying assemblies and our digital citizenship presentation with Norwich PD. We hear the students talking about it in the hallway, and I'm happy to hear that it has changed the way that they're approaching some different situations.
Not a question in regards to that. I just thought of something real quick that, if you don't mind me asking. Regarding the sports that's took place, roughly what is the attendance, like the last event, how many people attended roughly between students and parents?
Well,
A rough number, I mean.
A rough number, okay. Gosh, with students, I'd probably say close to, I'm going to say 40 to 50 students. And for our parents, I'm going to say 175.
What was the event?
Basketball, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I did not reference the band, I only did the sporting events.
Sure, that's, okay.
When you walk into the gym, the bleachers are marked with X's to help social distance so that families are encouraged to sit together and then leave space so that the next family can go. We also have a designated area marked for our student section as well.
And with that setup, roughly how many people can attend with that setup?
The current operations that we're having it's perfect.
Okay. And there was room for more if people were to attend, or were we maxed out with?
No, there's room for more to attend. Not too much more, maybe an additional 25.
Okay.
What was interesting at that game, Michelle and I attended, Bob was there. We also had a little girls cheerleader presentation. So they presented at halftime of the first game or between the games?
Halftime of the first game.
Halftime of the first game, and then a lot of those people left. So we had even more room beginning of the third quarter of the first game that people could have come in. Bob did a really nice job setting up the gym and managing people who came in and had a nice checkoff system, and it was well done given the constraints that we agreed to participate with.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Aaron's, thank you for the report. Mrs. Maisel, Lee School.
We also have no suspensions to report from Lee School, and we are also looking at our data from trimester 1. So in October, we implemented a referral process at Lee School that looks a little different at Lee than it does at Giles. As you can imagine, we want to follow the data where the student need is, and we typically have the most referrals coming from our playground. So that's our unstructured time when our kids are at recess. And so we're looking at what supports we can put in place to make sure that we are supporting our students and our staff in the best way possible at those kind of hot spots where we're getting those referrals. We also are having conversations with our students about replacement behaviors. What can you do instead of switching someone? What are some of those? We're having those conversations with our students when we are having those referrals come to the office. And lastly, we also sent out attendance letters for trimester 1, and we sent out 30 absent letters and 22 tardy letters to families that were over that threshold that we set. As you can imagine, it's very difficult to do that during COVID because of the mitigations that we have to follow to make sure that we're keeping everyone safe at school. That concludes my report.
Board. Okay, Mrs. Maisel, thank you. Board committees, board policy development. You'll see on the agenda is the policy updates were approved. Everything else on the agenda.
Well, so this might be a good time for me to reference this heavyweight that we put at your desk. Okay. So this is the packet 108 from the School Board Association Press Policy Service. There are 71 proposed revisions to board policies and or new policies. It's going to take us a while to work through this. And so in my note to you, I'm going to ask you in a few minutes to approve these on first reading so that we can start the process and move it forward. But I think what I want to do is, and I've talked to President Palazzo about this, rather than take the time to go through all of these as a board as a whole, it may be more efficient for all of us if we create an ad hoc policy review committee, board policy review committee. It would be ad hoc, meaning when we start it, when we're done, the committee would be disbanded. But I think the way we need to address these policies is to break them up into really 3 groups. One, the first group would be what are just the cosmetic changes, okay, like we did the last time. There's some of those in there. 2, there are 2 very significant topics that I believe the board's going to want to have some robust conversation about, but we need to dig into the policy to see what all that's going to include. The first is the new sex ed curriculum that's going to be based on the national sex ed curriculum standards. And then second deals with this concept of grooming. And we'll explain more about that, but this is something that's garnered a lot of attention and is going to require some time for us to explore everything that we need to make good decisions about both of those issues. And then the third group that I would look at is everything that's left. And I don't know how all that breaks out, but those two key topics that I've mentioned, the grooming, the sex ed curriculum, I think, again, we're going to need to have a pretty robust conversation, and I think that it would be helpful for the board if we had a subcommittee that would meet with Michelle and me to begin to work through these.
Yeah, and Ralph, you brought that up to me in our agenda meeting with Michelle. Is there any interest from any board members being on that subcommittee? As we go that route, I can appoint two people, but I want to know if there's any interest first before we do that. So if you have interest in it, let me know. Send me an email. Let me know. Building and grounds.
Yeah, I do have stuff to report, and at any point, if Lou help elaborate, Pat, you want to help elaborate when I'm done? So last Tuesday, the Building Grounds Committee met with myself, Pat, Skuzik, Mr. Grimm, and some representatives of Representative STR and Representative of Canton. So let me go with this report first. So in terms of renovation, the steam labs are pretty much done, am I right to say?
I'm sorry?
The steam labs?
Yep, we're just putting final touches on the connections and everything going up,
So coming up then with the equipment, furnishing with the equipment, and further curriculum development. But even so, the rooms will be utilized somewhat during the coming months as is possible. Coming in the near future, or actually seen in tonight's agenda, is the issue of asbestos removal. The meeting last Tuesday, like I said, had a representative from the company Inclement, a longtime associate of the Norwich schools, actually associate of a lot of schools, and this man explained the scope of the asbestos removal we face, options on completing the next phase, and what goes on into its costs. Now, even myself, and I know you guys are thinking this, you keep hearing asbestos, and you're like, at what point is asbestos going to be done as an issue in District 8? The thing is that as I hear more, I learn more, and you have asbestos in floor tile. Then you have asbestos in insulation around pipe fittings. Then you have asbestos in insulation following the length of heating pipe. So we think we've handled near all of the floor tile.
Nearly all. There are still some segregated areas in the building,
but they're
for
covered.
the most part, that's been completed.
Yeah, and because they're covered, the floor tile part, we don't have to address it quite yet. We will. What this is about tonight is about the removal efforts of the insulation around pipe and fittings, plumbing. So the representative Campbell explained this, how it's done, the most efficient way to do it, cost-effective way to do it, and I felt comfortable with what he described. Having mentioned the insulation around heating pipes, that was discussed, but that type of insulation is so intact and non-threatening because it is intact that it's not exactly a concern now. Something to definitely keep an eye on, and in the future we'll address it.
Just real quick, we have two avenues to keep track of it. We have 6-month surveillance, which is required by the IDPH, where we have to go around and inspect the areas and remediate any areas of concern. And then every 3 years, a licensed project manager like Camplin comes through the building and does an entire walk through the entire building, looking at it to make sure there is nothing that's been disturbed. So
yeah, that's true. And in this particular effort, we see in our agenda of taking off the asbestos insulation around pipes, plumbing, and it's fittings. It doesn't mean you knock open walls to get to where you suspect it. It's everywhere that's been reviewed where it is seen and recognized as having that. Those areas that are behind walls that would take demolition to get to will be addressed when we do renovation of that area, if so.
Yeah.
So, this is good to explain. The one chiller in Giles and the one in Lee has been achieved. The BAS system replacement, or the HVAC control system is another way of saying it, is moving along steadily. In last week's meeting, this building grounding, we further discussed repiping. And I want to elaborate on that too. So STR was there and he presented drawings of both schools. They were divided in sections. Lee is divided in A, B, and C. Giles is divided in D and E. So they explained the costs of replacing the water service and the piping, all the piping that feeds all bathrooms, kitchens, sinks. It'll bring new copper supply pipes to replace galvanized pipe that is definitely at the end of its life. So this piping will basically lead to each area there is a bathroom. And then where it stops, a valve is placed so that when later on we systematically renovate each bathroom area, you renovate and connect into those valves of the new pipes. To try to do it all at once, one would be a crazy undertaking, it would be entirely too much, and it's better to do like the infrastructure part of your plumbing first, then do all the bathrooms. And now it's going to be done section by section. Each section being estimated to be a month, but it'll be paced. And spring break winter break and spring breaks would be like prime time for this. The idea would be to do one zone or one of these area zones and to see how it goes, and then that'll help determine when to do the next zone and how to proceed with this over the next few years. It is going to be paid with our bond proceedings. And the cost is approaching $750,000, but that could be lowered if some of the smaller parts of it can be done internally, to be determined if so. But we've known that this has been an issue at those schools for a while.
Right. To pay me now, pay me later is the type of deal with the asbestos. It's going to cost us less money to get it all wiped out at one time, as opposed to trying to piecework it. You have to pull permits every time you remove asbestos. So it'll be more cost efficient for us to pull a permit instead of many permits. The permits are cheap. I believe it was $2,200 a permit, right?
Cook County.
And that's per each time. In Illinois, Cook County, they don't fool around with asbestos. So it's they have a great plan. I was impressed by it, and I think that we should talk about it and look really deeply at doing it.
Yeah, and to that, you have to be, it's a touchy thing because when you do it, you have to be a little ginger with how parents are seeing it. They walk into a wing of the building that has all this plastic sheeting up, and you have to pick the right time where it can be done all together, and in areas that just aren't going to be used for so that time needed, that'd be best. But this company has got it down to a science. It was very thorough explanation.
I felt comfortable.
Yeah. And that's all I have right now. Does anybody want to add? Anything to elaborate?
No, I just want to reiterate what Michelle said and Frank, the chillers are both done. We did it a little bit differently. We really did we disrupted one class. We moved one preschool room out of the way. We went with some smaller cranes, so we didn't have to swing over the building to minimize the interruption in school. You know, installing chillers in November, again, is cheaper than installing chillers in June or July. Because in June or July, paying a premium. In November, companies will give you a better price because they just want to keep their guys working. So that's kind of how we did it with chillers. So that right now we are applying for our rebates from combat with those. And I'll let Derek talk a little bit about the BAS progress, a little bit more on that.
We've been working on the BAS project for probably about 2 months now. And what that is, it's train controls that go on each component of the heating and cooling system, the chillers, the air handlers, boilers. It's basically what it is a computer that controls and monitors each piece of equipment and then sends that information back to a main brain computer. So we're just about done with all of the control hookups and cabling. And so the train engineer and computer programmers will be coming in to set up pretty much the main brain where we can access that and find out all the information and control all the components that we need to from a Chromebook or a laptop. So they should be finishing up in the next few weeks, hopefully.
Board, any question?
I have a question. So, while he was talking about galvanized versus copper piping, I was looking at the spot price of copper. And it's on a downswing right now, so does it behoove us to buy the copper now when the prices are reduced, as opposed to waiting until we pull permits and get everything else, get our act together and have it totally laid out?
Yeah.
You know what? It is. You gotta have somebody look at the blueprints, figure out pipe sizes. We got so much going on right now, we're understaffed as it is. To ask one of them to do that that's a lot. But yeah, ordering.
I know nothing about that.
I know what you're saying. I like the idea too. I'm always thinking like that. I'm always thinking like that.
Well, you know, Lou works in plumbing, and
I know.
he's seen the volatility of material. I like career purchasing and I buy raw materials like that. I see one thing you wonder though, it's going down now. Is it continue to go down now, or is it in 4 or 5 months when we closer to making the purchase, will it be further down?
Right now,
all the what ifs.
It's at 348, so we got some time.
Yeah, and you know, one factor that we do have to is once this goes out to bid, who the company is, how they approach that, how we can work with them to get in the raw material. I'd love to save money as much as possible.
Right.
It's very valuable.
Very valuable. Very valuable.
There are a couple of things that are kind of going to meet here. Right now, we're kind of at an artificial high in copper prices because of what's going on in the world. What's going to happen is that's going to start to come down. But then, all the influx of all the ESSER money and infrastructure money is going to drive that back up. So we talked about different strategies about would the district purchase all the pipe, pre-purchase it, have it on site, and then have the contractor use it. There's pros and cons to that, right? You're storing stuff that's going to be damaged. How are they going to warranty it? So we have a little bit of time because the asbestos project is going to go on through the summer. We have a little bit of time. As soon as STR puts together a really firm set of prints, then we'll bring out some plumbers and have them look at it and give us some ideas. Luckily, Lou is a licensed plumber, so we can have him,
Once we have all the pipe exposed, your idea makes sense, but until then, we don't know. Your blueprint might say 2 inches, and then you look at it, I guarantee they're trying to do that.
So once we get to that point, we'll kind of make those decisions. We'll make sure we get the biggest bang for our buck.
Yeah. Very good.
Okay. Frank, Lou, Derek, and Pat, thank you much for that report. Communications. Finance.
No updates.
Negotiations. Sarah, Frank and Renzo, Sarah sent me some literature here. There's a online class, Trends in Collective Bargaining, January the 29th. coming up at 9 o'clock. I have info on that if you're interested in that. But other than that, there's nothing to report this time. We are in a contract year, so I'm sure there's going to be more to report in the next coming months. The next three items on the agenda, the education, parent, teacher advisory, and behavioral. Those are as needed. We haven't met on any of those, so there's no report on any of those three. Norwich Park District.
I personally don't have anything to report, but I'll hand it over to Michelle.
Thank you. So, Mr. Grimm and I met with Anne Marie Flaherty, and as I reported last month, the Norwich Park District was going to be hiring a new director of programmings, their after-school programmings, and they did. They hired him. As I'm sitting here, his first name is Evan. I'm not remembering his last name. Do you remember his last name? No. I'll get that to you.
I have written down on my.
I get it too.
Yeah,
I
right.
don't remember right now. I'm sorry. He's actually followed up with me again after our meeting. What we're really excited to report is the Norwich Park District is putting together some after-school enrichment activities for our students here in Norwich District 80. We are aiming that to start the first week of February. They will have information out for us. I'm meeting with them again next week. Then they'll have information for us at the beginning of January to send out to our families. The purpose of this program is to provide some enrichment fun activities for our students. We are looking at discussing using some ESSER funds for it. A couple other steps that have to be put in place before that we'll be speaking with the board about. But we're excited that they have a lot of interest in providing this program. Evan, who they hired, has some experience with running programs like this. I think it's a great relationship we've started with them. Honestly, we're pretty excited about it. They'll use some space in Lee School for it. For example, if they were running a program in the gym and needed the gym, they would do that. They would also use space in Giles School for the program as well. Whatever space that they need for whatever classes are offered. So we'll be coming to you with some good information soon.
I would just add, as I put out to you in my note to you on this, we're really looking at the Park District running this program, and we'll be bringing to you an intergovernmental agreement to approve that lays out that relationship, but they're going to be the provider of the staff and the programming, and we'll essentially subcontract with them. But with a lot of cooperation and collaboration in developing and planning programs. So we'll bring that agreement to you as soon as we get it ready to bring to you.
And it is Evan Clayton, and he is the new Recreations Director for the Norwich Park. Great guy, and good meeting.
It's all good stuff. The board looks forward to that being implemented early next year. Very good. Moving on to our consent agenda. I ask the board to consider the approval of the consent agenda. Any discussion? I ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Frank, Maria, roll call please, sir.
Yes.
Mrs. Waddle? Yes. Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mr. Lozano? Mr. Guerrero?
Yes.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Motion does carry. Moving on to our action items. I ask the board to consider the approval of the 2021 tax levy resolution and certificate of tax levy. Discussion? I'll ask for a motion to approve the 2021 tax levy resolution and certificate of tax levy.
Motion.
Second.
Molly, Frank, roll call please.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Kaminga?
Yes.
Mr. Guerrero?
Yes.
Mrs. Waddle? Yes. Mr. Lozano? Mr. Palazzo?
Yes. Motion carries. I ask the board to consider the approval of the resolution to the levy 2021 taxes for certain purposes. Discussion? Ask for a motion to approve the resolution to levy 2021 taxes for certain purposes.
Motion.
Molly, Maria, roll call please.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mrs. Waddle?
Mr. Lozano?
Yes.
Mr. Berardi?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio?
Yes.
Motion carries. I ask the board to consider the approval of the resolution to instruct county clerk how to approach 2021 tax levy extension reduction. Discussion. I'll ask for a motion to approve the resolution to instruct county clerk how to approach 2021 tax levy extension reduction.
I'll motion.
Second.
Lorenzo, Molly. Roll call, sir.
Mr. Berardi?
Yes.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio?
Yes.
Mrs. Blatman? Mr.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And before you move on, I really think it's appropriate to thank Dr. Schilling for his work on putting this together. This process is not easy. Craig makes it look easy because he's so good at it, but there's a tremendous amount of work over a period of time to get us to this point. And I just want to say thank you for all your work on this. It's excellent. And Craig has expertise in this that I don't have because it's in a tax cap county, so it's been really good for me to watch him and be able to ask him questions. But I really think you want to say
I
thank
think he's expressed his glad he was never in a tax cap county.
you. Yeah. I know. But he did a really nice job, so I just wanted to make sure we covered everything. Good job.
Dr. Schiller, we appreciate it. Thank you. I ask the board to consider the acceptance of the fiscal year 21 district audit and annual financial report. Discussion.
So I just want to make a couple of points because again, this is, the audit is kind of like an external scorecard. And at least I'll speak for me, I think maybe Craig would agree with some of this. This is what you guys can look into and say, you know what, you guys are doing a good job, or you know, we need to shore up some areas. And thankfully, as I look at the audit, and Craig hasn't seen it, he'll have a copy later tonight or tomorrow. Our audit's pretty clean, and that's what we want to hear. And again, thank you to Craig for his work, helping our team, Mrs. Guzik, Mrs. DeVore, because it is a lot of work to take care of all of the accounting work that needs to be done on a business like ours. I would encourage you all to look at the audit and get familiar with it. There's a lot of I think, really good information in there, and I laid this out for you in the audit. Things like the district financial profile score. For us to be at 3.9 on a 4-point scale and knowing what, I know about how that scale is constructed and what that means, that's really good for us. Would we love to be 4? Absolutely, but you got to work really, really hard, not that we're afraid of the work, but you got to have certain things fall into place to get a 4 on that 4-point scale. 3.9 is really what I always wanted to at least be where we're there. And that says, according to the formulas that are used to calculate that score, we're better than quite a few districts in the state. We're at least where the state wants us to be, plus some. And so I think that's really good. There were no significant findings in the audit. I talked to Dr. Schilling briefly before the meeting. There's 2 things in there. I highlighted them for Dr. Schilling. Division of duties. Almost every district in the state gets that verbiage in some form or fashion, because to do it the way they would like to do it, in terms of generally accepted accounting principles, you'd have to hire a lot of people. And most districts aren't set up that way. And then the idea of not recording the on-behalf payment to TRS that the state of Illinois makes for us. That's really a function of us being on cash accounting. And Craig agreed with me, I believe, that that's not really a big deal for us. The money is paid on our behalf. We don't even see it. Nobody gives us a check to put in our account against which we would write a check. So this is a preference of our auditors. That's how I would describe it. But they're obligated to point that out. Really, the rest of the audit looked very, very good. And so I just would encourage you to look over my notes. There's a couple other things, but I'll let you read that. But there's information in there that people external to our district will look at and use to judge us on our own merits, but also against other districts. So there are some things in there, like the operating expenditure per pupil, the per capita tuition charge. They'll compare us with other districts, and they'll make assumptions based on our numbers. And so I just wanted to point some of those things out to you, so you know how this is being used. But really, the headline for me, and then if I've missed anything, Greg, please fill in. This is an outside entity saying, you guys got your act together, you're doing a good job. And that's what I take away from this. So, congratulations to the team, and thank you for Greg and Michelle and Kenny and Sarah and anybody else who helped with this. So we would recommend that you accept the audit, and then we will fulfill all the posting requirements beginning tomorrow.
Well, thank you for that. I'll ask the board for a motion to accept the fiscal year 21 audit and annual financial report.
Motion.
Second.
Molly and Frank, roll call, sir.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Tribuzio?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mr. Lozano? Mr. Berardi?
Yes.
Mrs. Lala? Yes.
Motion carries. Ask the board to consider the approval of board policy updates issued 108 on first reading. Discussion, as Ralph mentioned before, in our committee report under board policy. All right, I'll ask for a motion to approve board policy update issue 108 on first reading.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
Renzo and Frank, roll call please.
Mr. Berardi?
Yes.
Mr. Tribuzio?
Yes.
Mrs. Lala? Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mr. Lozano?
Motion does carry. I ask the board to consider the approval of the asbestos removal bid project scope. Any other discussion on that?
So as Mr. Tribuzio mentioned, at our Building and Grounds Committee meeting last week, Mr. Camplin did present two options to deal with the removal of the asbestos wrap around our plumbing joints. Essentially, as I look at it, and Pat can correct me if I misspeak, the two options really revolve around doing the work over one summer or two. If you do it over two, we incur duplicative cost for staging, permitting, testing, some of that kind of stuff. That doesn't make sense to me, and I think Pat agrees. So in the documentation that you have, we are recommending that you approve option one, what I call option one, doing the work this summer of 22, and getting this part of this project done all at once. If there's a downside to this, it could impact the start of school, and potentially we may need to move the Park District Pre-K from this building while the asbestos removal is being conducted. There will be a walkthrough with Mr. Kaplan the 28th, I believe. And we have asked Anne Marie Flaherty to be here on that day to speak with Mr. Kaplan, so that she can get some information and get some questions answered about what's possible, what this would look like, and make sure that she's comfortable with all the things that we need to do. So with your approval of our recommendation to go with what I call option one, then Mr. Camplin will come in and do the walkthrough, and then he will work with Pat and Derek, develop the bid specs, take the project out to bid, and we would come back to you at the February board meeting with a bid to approve. Okay? So a lot of work has gone into this. My compliments to Pat, to Derek, for getting us to this point this evening. Did I leave anything out, Pat?
Okay, well, thank I'll ask the board for a motion to approve the asbestos.
Wait, I'm sorry, I have a question. I have two questions.
Sure.
So you mentioned that, number one, there's potential for, because we're doing it all in a compacted time frame, that it would delay the start of school. What would that delay look like would be my part A. My question in part B, what is the contingency plan in the event that, this building suffers some kind of issue where that park district plan or program that we have here, what's the contingency plan if something happens where they can't be here?
Sure, so the idea would be to do the first part here. We would move them over to Giles. When we're done here, they come back and then we go to Giles.
Okay.
So it would be, the time frame that was suggested in the note was, I believe, 22 shifts, right? Something like that. So what we don't know, and we won't know until we do the walkthrough at the end of this month, is how much overlap can there be. So they'll do some of the work here, and then maybe they will have time to go get started on some of the work over at Giles while they're waiting for the air to settle so they can do their finishing air sampling and their final clean.
Okay.
So that 22 shifts could be a little bit less than that. We just don't know for sure.
Okay.
It's gotta be a real slim chance that it's going, these asbestos removal people are everything is done. 3 days later, everything's already been
So
cleaned up.
one thing, we're gonna start July 1st. Traditionally, asbestos in schools is the first thing that has to happen, right? That usually happens in June, because once they get in, then the contractors behind it will rebuild. Because we're not following this up with a project right after it, we can start in July, which hopefully means we'll have A, more manpower, B, sharper pencils, so they want to keep their guys working through the summer. So we don't anticipate a labor shortage. That was one of the things that did happen, last summer, where there was some labor issues. We're hoping that this will kind of mitigate that. We're going to get a better price. But you're right, there is always a potential of running into something. But through the vetting process, we're going to make sure that I'm fully confident in Hamlet. They've done asbestos removal for many, many years. We'll vet the contractor to make sure that it's a contractor that's reputable, that we'll understand how to get this done and make sure they get it done.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure, good questions.
Good question. Any other questions or discussion? All right, I'll ask for a motion to approve the asbestos removal bid project scope. Louis? Maria? Roll call.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Swallow? Yes. Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Tribuzio?
Yes.
Mr. Colasso?
Yes.
Mr. Burr?
Yes.
Motion carried. I'd ask the board to consider the approval of the non-public facility placement contract with Janine Schultz School for one student. Time period being August 27th, 2021 through August 3rd, 2022, in the amount of $42,076.88. Discussion. I'll ask for a motion to approve the non-public facility placement contract with Janine Schultz School for one student. Time period August 27th, 2021 through August 3rd of 2022 in the amount of $42,076.98.
Motion.
Louis, Frank, roll call please.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Tribuzio?
Yes.
Mr. Burr?
Yes.
Mr. Colasso?
Yes.
Mrs. Swallow? Yes. Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Motion carried. Ask the board to consider the approval of non-public facility placement contract with Janine Schultz School for one student, October 19th, 2021 through August 3rd of 2022, in the amount of $34,214.11. Discussion. Ask the board for a motion to approve the non-public facility placement contract with Janine Schultz School for one student, October 19, 2021 through August 3rd of 2022, in the amount of $34,214.11. $214.11.
Motion. Second.
Maria move. Roll call, sir?
Mrs. Lum? Yes. Mr. Mazzano? Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mr. Berard?
Yes.
Mr. Trujillo?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Couple discussion items tonight. Ralph, what do you want?
I think Michelle's going to handle the 3 discussion items this evening, so thank you.
You're welcome.
So the first item, 16A, is proposed revision to the e-learning plan. Back in November of 2019, pre-COVID, the Illinois Public Act 10-0465 allowed districts to get approval from their regional office, in our case West 40, for an e-learning plan. This plan was to use on inclement weather days. So for example, snow days, or a day with too much snow, or cold weather days. We've presented a plan that the board approved in November to West 40 for what we would do on a day like that, where we could still count the day in attendance and our students were continuing learning. Since then, we have certainly improved on what we can offer for an e-learning day. So just want to be clear, an e-learning day is just a day when an inclement weather comes up, something that usually happens quite quickly. Could be, we know there's a lot of snow, or we know there's a lot of cold, minus 35 temperatures is coming up on a certain day, and we would then, Mr. Grimm would make the decisions after consulting with area superintendents to invoke this plan. Simply tonight, I just want to make the board aware that this is something that we're working on updating, and that we would like to bring you an updated plan in January. Things that we'll be talking about through our district leadership team and our building leadership teams are how attendance is reported, how we're sharing out links so that students continue to be working virtually, how inclusion services for students with exceptionalities will be handled, meeting that 5-hour day requirement for learning, and then just continuing student learning and progression towards mastery of skills. So we'll be bringing you that plan in January and I know that's a little bit late, but that's where we are right now, so we'll be putting that plan together. Anything to add?
Just one thing, just to update the board. Michelle and I have decided, with input from the leadership, that if we get in a situation where we feel we cannot have school due to the weather, the first time, we are not going to call that an e-learning day. It's just going to be an old-fashioned snow day. So we want kids and families to enjoy without having to worry about parents providing instruction during that day. Okay? And so it's a little different than maybe what we've done, but we really think it's important that we at least handle the first, if we have one inclement weather day that way, and then we'll share with you next month what it'll look like from that point on. And hopefully that means with your approval.
If I can add to that, the important piece of that, I would like the board to take away is, when we know an e-learning day or inclement weather day is coming and we have time to plan for it, and students especially, the students have time to take home their Chromebooks, to take home their math books, to have all the things that they need to continue learning at home, then we'd like to continue learning at home. If, for example, the snow comes out of nowhere, we didn't know it was coming, we wake up, there's 12 inches of snow, and we are not prepared for students at home to be learning, we would err on the side of a snow day. We want to make sure that we can set up our students and set up our teachers for success if they're going to be home for the day. And we're counting that as a day of attendance. The next item, 16E, is review of proposed changes to the parent-student handbook. We are coming at you next month with some proposed changes to the student-parent handbook. I've highlighted those 3 changes to you. There's a new law, actually, that Senator Markwick did write, which is 102-321, that allows students from ages 7 to 17 the ability to take 5 excused mental health days a year. This law goes into effect in January of 2022. The first item in Chapter 2 for us with attendance, promotion, and graduation is simply updating that part of the language, which would include mental or behavioral health related reasons. The second item, which is in Chapter 5, health and safety. This item is just some cleanup language. We would be removing, as I've highlighted for you, the red area, a warning to the students will not proceed drills, to all other drills will not be preceded by a warning to students. It's just a simple language cleanup for the handbook. And then Chapter 6, we are adding some language to align with our Norwich District 8 Board policy. This language is talking about student appearance with dress and hygiene, and just updating the language to our policy that aligns with exactly what our policy. So we will be bringing these 3 items to you next month for approval. And the last item, actually, I think we already reported on. If you have any other questions about the Norwich Park District, we have to answer them, but I think we jumped the gun a little bit on that one.
Very good.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, Michelle, thanks. Board comments in general? I ask the board to consider a motion to adjourn the closed session to discuss the employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees and review of closed session minutes. Discussions, questions, comments? I'll ask for a motion to adjourn the closed session to discuss the employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees and review of closed session minutes.
Motion.
Frank, Maria, roll call please, sir.
Mr. Tribuzio?
Yes.
Mrs. Blau? Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mr. Berger?
Yes.
Mr. Malone? Yes. Mr. Beck?
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. Note the time, it's 9:07. Go ahead and take a break. We'll be back, we're going to close at 9:20. All right, board, we're back in open session right now, it's 10:33 p.m. Personnel action items. I'd ask the board to consider the approval of employment of Derek Sellers, supervisor, buildings, grounds, and maintenance. Discussion? All right, I'll ask for a motion to approve the employment of Derek Sellers, supervisor of buildings, grounds, and maintenance.
Motion.
Frank? Maria? Roll call, please.
Mr. Tribuzio?
Yes.
Mrs. Blau? Yes. Mr. Malone?
Yes.
Mr. Berger?
Yes.
Mrs. Beck? Yes. Mr. Palazzo?
Yes. That motion does carry. I'd ask the board to consider the approval of employment of Brianna Giovanelli, long-term special ed sub at Lee School. Discussion? I'll ask for a motion to approve the employment of Brianna Giovanelli, long-term special ed sub at Lee School.
Motion. Second.
Louis Renzo. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lozano? Mr. Berger?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mrs. Blau? Yes. Mr. Tribuzio?
Yes.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. I'd ask the board to consider the approval of the reassignment of Tammy DeCinto, building administrative assistant at Lee School to district registrar. Discussion. Okay, I'll ask for a motion to approve the reassignment of Tammy DeCinto, building administrative assistant at Lee School to district registrar.
A motion.
Second.
Renzo by Frank. Roll call.
Mr. Berger?
Yes.
Mr. Tribuzio?
Yes.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mrs. Blau? Yes. Mr. Lozano?
Motion does carry. I'd ask the board to consider the approval of the reassignment of Marta Sukanu, maternity leave sub ELL at Lee School to ESL teacher at Lee School, lane 1, step 1, at $46,535, prorated for the remainder of the 2021 through 2022 school year, with a rate of $27,145.72. Discussion. I'll ask for a motion to approve the reassignment of Marta Sukanu, maternity leave sub ELL at Lee School to ESL teacher at Lee School, lane 1, step 1, $46,535 prorated for the remainder of the 2021 to 2022 school year, at $27,145.72.
No motion.
Okay, Renzo, Maria, roll call please.
Mr. Berardi?
Yes.
Mrs. Blau? Yes. Mr. Trabuzio?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano? Mrs. Deck? Yes. Mr. Palazzo?
Yes. That motion does carry. Time for board meeting reflection.
While you're receiving the sheet, I want to suggest to you that the minutes for the employment of Derek will reflect his salary of $75,000, so that we have that in the official minutes. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's okay. You want to go over that? Yeah.
Okay. That becomes your permanent record of what was done. I think it's important that we have it, so Sarah, you make work on that.
I'll ask for a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting at 10:37 p.m. Motion made by Renzo, seconded by Frank. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Thank you all. Meeting is now adjourned.